Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome today to my review of undoubtedly what is one of the quirkiest watches that I've looked at in ages. It's a Timex Expedition, but given that there must be at least 250 different Timex Expeditions, that doesn't really help much. Specifically, it's a Timex Expedition Camper T45181. Now this one has already made a couple of appearances on the channel. I included it in a 4-watch Timex unboxing special in August last year, and then I recommended it as one of my top 10 Digi watches in a different video the following month. So I have, and I do recommend this watch then. But my recommendation is heavily contingent on one thing, that thing being the price. Under $50 US, it gets a thumbs up. Over $50 US, it gets a thumbs down. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Alright then, well, I gave a fairly specific price recommendation in the intro there. Let's start by talking about the price then, and I have some good news, but I also have some bad news. The good news is that if you are in the States, you can buy one of these for $44 US and a bit of change currently on Amazon. The bad news is if you put that into Google Convert, it works out at just under 70 Australian dollars. The bad news for us Aussies is it doesn't cost 70 Australian dollars. The Amazon price here is 115. I seem to remember paying 89 Australian dollars when I bought this one in the middle of last year. The box was scruffy when I got it. It's not a new model, so no idea how long this one had been knocking around the Amazon warehouse. I guess the recommendation is price dependent today, first and foremost. Also feature dependent. It does quite a lot, this watch, but it's not necessarily intuitive. Perhaps if you are more used to Timex than you are to Casio, like I am, then you'll find it easier, but yeah, I suspect probably not. It is a rather unusual looking watch though, isn't it? So making no secrets of its outdoor focus like the rest of the Expedition range, this one is in a range of drab woodland style colours that will see you and your watch blending in with the trees, assuming that is the trees are made of plastic. In terms of dimensions, they refer to this one as a 39. I actually measure it as closer to 40. I'm going to call it at 39.8 across the diagonal, not including the pushers. Bang on 12mm thick, 45.6mm lug tip to lug tip, 20mm lugs. That is acrylic crystal, so it will scratch, but you will be able to polish it. It's like the crystal that you get on most Casio watches. 100 meters of water resistance and weighing only 32 grams as supplied on this nylon 2-piece band. So lightweight watch, very lightweight feeling as well. Now some people are going to appreciate that. I guess that's the point. It's for when you're camping and trekking and you don't want to take a lot of weight on your wrist or anywhere else, but it doesn't lend the watch a particularly sturdy feel therefore. Interesting colour choices here though, green for the bulk of the case and black for the bezel. We have got kind of washed out sepia. They almost look kind of glow in the dark, but they unfortunately don't glow in the dark for pushers, and it is a stainless steel crown with a little plastic cap to it. Stainless steel screw-on case back there with the big Expedition E and the arrow through the middle of it. One thing I do appreciate with Timex though is they put the battery code on the back, so when this one eventually dies, you'll be able to just look at the case back, order batteries and swap it over yourself. In this case, it's a CR2016. Even the 2-piece nylon band is fairly quirky and it's nicely done. I've got to say, for under $50, plenty of stitching. It's going to hold together fairly well for a fair length of time, I would imagine. And look at this, we've got these kind of double articulated little bridges here that connect the strap to the case of the watch. Again, I haven't seen anything like that before. That is a plastic rather than a rubber retainer, again for longevity. And we have a brushed metal buckle and tang featuring the Timex logo on it. Alright, features and functions, and strap in folks because it's a bit of a bumpy ride. This one is quirky in the way it looks and also in the way it features thanks to its functions. And a Digi, so as far as I can tell, entirely separate. We've got a 3-hand analog movement and an LCD digital movement that work entirely independently of each other. I pull the crown out, that hacks the 3 central hands. They can be set independently anytime you like. They have no bearing whatsoever on the LCD display and vice versa. Now, Timex handily tell you what those 4 buttons do. Top left is always Indiglo. That really is this watch's ace card. I'll show you that later on. It is spectacular. Mode here, alarm there, and set there. When the alarm is set, you can press this button to remind you when the alarm is set. Modes down the bottom left. This is the kind of dual time, if you will. You can therefore set this one to show 3 separate time zones, but do bear in mind that you're setting the alarm based on the 2 time zones on the LCD. So unless one of the time zones on the LCD matches and duplicates and replicates the time zone shown by the central analog hands, then you're not necessarily going to get the alarm going off at the time you expected, if you see what I mean. Press it once and hey presto, we are into alarm. Now it's flashing here T1, T2. You can set the alarm based on either of the 2 time zones that are shown by this LCD display. You adjust them by pressing the top here. Now that is alarm and hourly chime on or off. It's a hell of an hourly chime, by the way. The whole thing is a little bit noisy. The central analog hands are noisy, as is the alarm. Press on the bottom here. This is the second button, and it brings up that T1. So that's now flashing. I can now set it, cycling through 1, 2, etc. onto the minutes and so on. All right, that's now set. I press this bottom button here. They call it button 3. That's now set, and I move back to the mode. So that's the alarm done. Cycling past the alarm, we have a 24-hour timer. Now, start here, but not stop here. Stop here, restart here. There's no reset button per se, so I'm going to stop it again, and if I want to reset, I press this one more time, and it goes back to 24-hour timer. I then start it again. So it's a kind of auto reset. You go back up one menu, allowing you to start and stop the timer again. So let me stop it and adjust the time. But what if I don't want a 24-hour timer? What if I want to adjust that? Well, press this once and it goes straight into set mode. What if I want to adjust for a 1-minute countdown timer? I'm doing reps or something similar. All right, that's 1 minute. That's set. Let's start it. Okay, there we are. So I can start it, I can stop it, and I can reset it. Oops, I haven't stopped it. There we are. I can stop it, and I can reset it by pressing that button once, and I can then start it again. However, if I press that button twice, so once to get it back to the 1-minute countdown, it automatically resets back to 24-hour. So every time you want to use the countdown timer, you're going to have to reset the amount of time that you want it counting down for, which is a bit of a pain in the arse, as far as I can tell. All right, that's the timer then. Let's cycle on to the chronograph. Now, 2 different chronograph modes, and you have to pick your chronograph mode carefully before you engage the chronograph. So lap or splits. Let's do splits and let's start. So you can start here, you can stop, and then you can continue on your way, you can stop, and you can continue on your way. You can also do splits by pressing this button again, this button again, and then your stop. And similar to the countdown timer, if you want to reset it, you just go back up to this 1 level up. So split or lap. We go into laps, we can start here, lap, 1, 2, 3, lap, 1, 2.5, 3, lap, you get the idea. And then to reset again, you go back out to the choice between laps and splits. I'm kind of fudging and fumbling my way through this. I spent a bit of time learning how to work it, but it's by no means intuitive. And once we go beyond the chronograph, the only other function is this dual time, so T2 as advertised there. One more press and you're back to what is the home time effectively, showing what in theory could and probably should be matched to the central analog hands. So laps, splits, countdown timer, and a choice of 2 alarms, but the alarms are based on the LCD and not the central display. All a little bit awkward if I'm being honest, but then again, it does have that ace to play still. That ace being Indiglo. Indiglo is ridiculous. Not only are the 2 main hands, the hour hand and the minute hand, loomed here, but when I press that first button, the top left button, the entire screen glows a glorious shade of electroluminescent blue. There is nothing else like this on the market, and certainly not for less than $50. One other quirky feature I almost forgot to show you is the ratcheting bidirectional bezel. Again, it's not a dive watch, but it does have 100 meters of water resistance. I guess it's more useful for timing your boiling water or something on a campsite rather than how long you've been underwater though. On rest, the watch is a reasonable size. You can still get a pretty good read from the main hands because of the contrast, the kind of loomed main hour-minute hand against that kind of beige tone dial. The little LCD display takes out the Arabics of 5, 6 and 7, replaces them with smaller LCD numerals. Not too bad. There is a little bit of a kind of shadow, a bit of overhang though, because they are set within the dial. Now the nylon two-piece band, not particularly compliant, but it is going to last forever as a consequence. As I said, it is well made. This is one of these watches that if you do get it grubby, if you get it covered in mud, you'll be able to give it a good old scrub with a brush and a kitchen sink and it'll come back up shiny and new. So the band may be slightly lacking in initial comfort, but it will pay dividends long term with durability. Alright, moans and niggles then. Well, I've already talked about the slightly stiff and stubborn nylon band, the slightly recessed and overhung LCD display, the more than slightly unintuitive operation, but I haven't talked about the alignment yet. The alignment of this watch is shocking. Have a look at that, the 00, the 24 and the 60 and the 12. Looks like the chapter ring is way off kilter, but I reckon everything's a little bit wonky. I mean, that's my best attempt at getting the 15, the 15 and the 15 to all line up, but when they are lined up, check what happens at the 30. All over the shop. My own completely misaligned example in stark contrast to the perfectly aligned one that Timex used for their press shots, oddly enough. So it's not a resounding yes today, but it's not an outright no either. It is very much price dependent. It's also feature dependent. You're going to have to look at your own needs and work out how many of this watch's features you do and you don't need, and how many of its features you could find elsewhere, either cheaper or potentially easier to use. The only one feature that you won't find elsewhere though is that Indiglo function, and it really is pretty spectacular. So there you have it, a thoroughly quirky and characterful yet chunky little outdoor style timepiece, this one, but not one free of idiosyncrasy, shall we say. If you love it and you can find one for less than $50 or equivalent, then by all means go for it, but make sure you have a good look at Casio Foresters, Casio Protreks and some of North Edge's more affordable offerings as well before you do so. In fact, why not have a look at a couple of alternatives right now, there or there. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you again in the next one.